Today is December 21st, 22nd? Today's December 22nd, Planning Board meeting, study session. We're going to review the first round of neighborhood plans with the intent being this is just more of a cleanup and update to begin to just streamline the neighborhood revisions and focusing on just the neighborhoods we have up here. We do have a couple of neighborhoods we don't have in here yet, but given the meeting from council, the focus is going to be primarily on the corridor areas as well as to include Santa Fe, Littleton, Broadway. And for the neighborhoods, given that we don't expect a lot of change there, we get a lot of great response of how great the neighborhoods are. So it's not that we want to that even we have any input that would say we would have to significantly change them. We just want to clean them up and make sure that there aren't any outdated policies, which we know there are. So, Dennis, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Oh.
Is this a regular meeting? Is there...
No, we're just making this a study session with no public comment.
So, even though it's a regular meeting date, it's changed?
Yeah,
Study session, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I incorporated Randy, Kurt's, and Mark's comments into here, and I apologize I didn't get Karina's in here, but Karina's here to kind of lead us through hers as well as we go through.
Yep.
All right, so, we'll just start off, I think, page by page in terms of comments, and those of you who are here can kind of represent yourself. That basically, if you look through these, it gets a little confusing in terms of all the colors, but RD is Randy, and he's kind of purple letters with red for RD initials, and then red in terms of the text. And Kurt is all blue, and Mark is all green. So you can kind of see there's a lot of similarity between the comments, and at the same time, there's some are more definitive in some areas and less so in others. So if you want to look at the page, it says Centennial Neighborhood, and I'll go there as well. First thing that Randy said was sub-neighborhood area 3 is also part of the central neighborhood. I think it's better suited to central neighborhood and should be removed from this neighborhood. So if you look back at the map in terms of where Centennial is, here, so what he's talking about is that we have this area, when we did the downtown area plan a few years ago, you may remember that we, I'll do it back here, sorry, everybody here. You may remember that we extended what had been defined as central area. We went all the way up to Bellevue, whereas it had stopped before, farther south than that, at Crestline. And we pulled it back to the east side of Santa Fe, whereas it had extended to the west side and to the river before. So what Randy is recommending is that area north of Bellevue actually be part of downtown because of the connections there. And I think we'll probably talk about the same thing in terms of the area on the west side of Santa Fe. Does that become part of the Centennial area as well, or what neighborhood is that part of in terms of what the actual policies are in there? So, you know, we had a little bit of that, and we'll see more of that as we go through areas that were not included or areas that have been changed. This is the only that really has been changed by the existing neighborhood plan.
Dennis,
Yes.
I had the actuals, the same comment, but about the central area plan as well, because in the central area, both sub-neighborhood 2 and 3 fall under the downtown plan. Mm-hmm. So I just want to make a note that I essentially have the same comment, so I think it really does warrant a redrawing of the lines so that we don't have to continuously duplicate.
Goal 1, question for Randy again is what existing character? So it says preserve the existing character of the neighborhood is exemplified by retail and commercial uses. And he was looking at, define that a little bit more. What does that really mean? Is that still what the neighborhood would see as its existing character? Whereas it has a large residential component that really want to see itself as retail and commercial primarily. So I think that's a question that needs to be asked at some point, and the board can come back with a recommendation on that. Second one is encourage and improve street system that will increase ease of access to the area, promote the viability of the area as a commercial and retail center. And again, we've got comments from both Randy and also Kurt saying, this is really not necessary. The streets are drawn, the streets are in place. We're not going to see additional streets in this area. So, comments on that? Anybody in terms of agreement, any disagreement? We may just go for. Randy, you want to go for disagreement on thing or conversation? How do you want to do it?
I think conversation.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. Okay.
True or false?
True or false?
So one of the things that, I'm sorry, I'm going to start. One of the things that I did in my edits, and so I'm just asking you guys to kind of keep this in the back of your minds. There were a lot of repeating goals in each of the neighborhoods. So you see these same goals somewhere else, and they keep repeating themselves. And so I think something that we should look into is, what are some, and we've talked about this before, what are just some overarching goals that apply to all neighborhoods, or if they don't apply to all neighborhoods, let's just make sure our language is consistent. So here we may say encourage and improve street system. Somewhere else it may say promote an improved street system. So very, very similar. So I think just to avoid confusion, if goals apply to both neighborhoods or several neighborhoods, let's just be consistent of what that goal says so it's very clear and understood.
Well, a little problem with that. These goals, objectives, land use policies were written by the neighborhood associations back in '81, buggy whip days. I just want to be careful here in what we do here. Are we? And I want to get this on record. I've spoken to you before the meeting. And are we doing a house cleaning? Are we doing a major edit? Are we doing a minor edit? Are we doing a remodel? Are we doing new construction? To my mind, we're just basically trying to get rid of things that have already been completed or the city has already expressed that they want to get rid of. For instance, extension of Gallup. I don't see us as taking out, for instance, encourage the goal number 2 for Centennial, encourage and improve street systems. I could see just leaving that in. It's innocuous. It can be, the neighborhood plan is going to be rewritten eventually. I just don't see a lot of these things being taken out because I think if we get too heavy into the editing, then we are judge, jury of what the neighborhood wants. And I don't think that's our goal in our housekeeping process.
Yeah, the way I would answer that is we should not be changing the essence of what the document says. So it should still represent what the neighborhood intended. But on the front of, from the perspective of cleanup, if we have a recurring, in my opinion, if we have a recurring goal that is intended to be the same, but it was just slightly different in how it was written, but the meaning is the same, I would suggest we just put some consistency in there just to keep things clean.
So for instance, we have there's a goal that's the same in two neighborhoods. There's one word out of place, and we determine it's out of place. Then we correct that one word, but leave that goal in each neighborhood plan.
Well,
yep.
It would strike me that to continue on the path we followed previously, if this is indeed intended to be a drill down, then our job would be to drill it down. And there may be things that are universally appropriate throughout every neighborhood that will ultimately get placed in a different place, such as, this is something I want, residential speed limits are 20 miles an hour in residential areas, so we don't have 25-mile, thoroughfares in there, right? That would be something, just as a sake of example, that could be a broad brush across every single neighborhood plan. I think our job today is simply to get rid of those things that are obsolete, to leave us a clean slate to build back up from without tearing this down. I am 100% against being judge, jury, and executioner on what the neighborhood plan should be, and I firmly believe we should go back to the neighborhood even though we've stepped back from that at the present moment.
Okay.
What I have to say about that.
So, when I did my editing, it was like, okay, error on the side of leaving it in, unless it just is like the old Littleton sewage treatment plant. It's gone, site's been developed, policy 3 for Centennial can be taken out. It's a no-brainer. And there might be 15 of those items that are obvious to everyone. And we could spend 6 weeks going over and fine-tooth combing everything else and getting into the dangerous rewrite. And I don't think that's what we're trying to do here.
And I think when you look at Kurt's comments, and Dennis, I don't know if you've been able to spend some time in this and try to assess some of this. So I think in what I saw, he had highlighted were areas that were duplicated in other parts of the plan. So that's the sense that I got from Kurt's comment, that I don't know if he said delete this or he was just trying to highlight where things were duplicated.
Either that, or you saw them more as kind of operational issues rather than plan issues. You kept asking the question, should this be in the comp plan?
Well, some editorial comments and things of that nature. I did a couple of those editorial comments, but I wouldn't delete it from the plan right now.
I think the rule should be if it's not relevant today, not a matter of opinion, not a matter of jurisdiction, not a matter of legal precedent or wordsmithing, but just that doesn't make sense today, I think that's plenty of scope for this dialogue.
Okay. Well, I think we should probably that piece I think will be relatively easy to get through. And then I think we can revisit what the next phase might be. Okay.
Number 3, encourage joint action of landowners and merchants in the city in solving or minimizing neighborhood problems. And Randy said, okay, as it is, and Kurt said, delete goal number 3. For the reasons I think
it does no harm.
Talking about.
It does no harm leaving it.
Leave it.
We don't know if there's issues, so who are we to say?
Okay. So far, we've left all 3 goals, and we're moving on to neighborhood policies. Transportation, pedestrian crossing on Santa Fe Drive to the Platte River. Greenbelt should be encouraged where feasible. And Randy said okay, and again, Kurt said delete this policy number 1.
Has them all deleted.
Yeah, Kirk doesn't want a policy.
He's done. It's over.
I say leave it.
Leave
I
it.
say
Yep.
leave it too.
Oh, by the way, I don't
think
put a-
that's a good thing to have in there.
Okay?
I didn't put okays on the ones, I just didn't make a comment on things I thought should stay in. So,
Okay.
That's good restraint.
thank you.
Land use. Policy number 1, land use. Randy said, and made some edits where he deleted some language. Originally it said, land associated with the South Platte, made available for redevelopment as a result of the South Platte River corridor should be zoned, channelization project should be zoned and developed in keeping with the character of the surrounding neighborhood and the riverfront plans. And he wanted to delete part of that, so it would end up reading, land associated with the South Platte River corridor should be zoned and developed in keeping with the character. So, Kurt said delete the policy. So.
I think it's fine. The wordsmithing is just what we're calling it today versus what it was probably called before.
Yes.
Is that already kind of done? We're going from Santa Fe north, from Bellevue north, right?
There are very few parcels, if any parcels
Yes.
left. Yes.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, it's done, isn't it? Is there anything left to develop there?
At this point, I think
There's some spots left for
There
development.
are some spots.
Are there
There's
some
some
spots?
residential neighborhood, there are residential land that will likely.
Well, and, yeah, technically within this plot of land is this Columbine Square Development Project. Right, the Federal and Bellevue.
Well, I don't think that was
That's too far
part of the
west.
channelization. Channelization was really just right along the river itself.
Well, but it lives here. It lives in the Centennial neighborhood, and that little
I see.
carve-out.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's just that the parcels don't go beyond that, because what they're talking about originally was that there were, when they did the channelization, there were some parcels left in terms of what do you do with this parcel. It wasn't known what the ownership should be ultimately, or what the use should be. And so this is saying, here's what we're recommending for the use of those parcels that were left when they rechanneled the river. It was just, they don't go very far. They're, a couple hundred feet probably. Max.
So I think the suggested changes seem appropriate to me. So in this case, I mean, they're simply restating things in the present tense as to what exists. So I think I agree with what's suggested here.
Randy's.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
Not deleting it.
Correct.
So Randy, we do Randy's? Yeah.
Do we have to,
Yeah,
I mean, are we making motions on these things that we are approving?
No, it would
or
take
just-
all night.
All right, so
Sure.
Yeah.
agree with the change.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Suggestion.
So it broadens it, and basically say anything associated with the river corridor itself, okay?
But not,
I'll go with the maps.
But not
on that
tied-
not
one.
Kurt's, not the deletion
Correct.
proposed, right?
Okay, good. Number 2, remnant parcels of land should be considered for such public uses as open space, parks, and parking lots and RTD park and ride locations, and should be jointly developed by the Highway Department and the city or other public agencies. And again, Kurt said delete policy number 2, and Mark said there's no station here, delete parking lots.
Probably and include RTD park and ride locations.
Okay?
I would say leave parking, because I think there's places there where the city could add parking. Not necessarily RTD, but maybe,
That's,
like Bowls and Santa
get rid of
Fe.
the reference to RTD.
Well, but Bulls
I
in
see.
Santa Fe is not here. That stretch north of Fondue part, I think, is what you're
Well,
talking
it
about.
sure
It is, isn't it?
Main Street and Santa Fe. Oh, I see.
Oh, it's not,
I'm
you're
looking at
right.
the South Platte River line.
the
You're
river
right.
is the buffer.
It's in, you're right, yeah, so it'd be in the central.
So this would be the strip mall where Core Power Yoga is.
I gotcha, yeah, and Centennial
and
Downs and all that.
Taco Bell and.
Okay.
Pizza
So
Hut
when I
comes
first
Taco
looked at
Bell.
this, yeah, I also
I
deleted
was
parking lots.
picturing- Yeah.
The only reason I left RTD, because it's not just for the train station, there could be a bus RTD, into Denver, or people from Highlands Ranch wanting to, is that called a?
Park
No,
and ride.
no, it's not a park and ride. Is it a park and ride? Is that called a park and ride? Yeah. So that's how I assumed or interpreted RTD.
It also
as-
gives it a more public use. You're saying you're going to use these remnant parcels for more of a public parking use as opposed to commercial parking or parking that's associated with a particular use.
I'm going to say I don't want that.
I don't think there are any changes necessary with that one. I mean, I think parking lots, we have a parking issue in downtown Littleton, and so maybe part of the solution is to take a parcel that's a remnant parcel in the Centennial neighborhood. So I'd say.
I'm going to change my attitude about it. I have a friend, and we do dueling parking garages, what's best for downtown. His idea is to build in Skunk Hollow, because you've got the sloping land there. You could do 2 or 3 levels before you get up to, Main Street level.
Where's Skunk Hollow?
And then I'm sorry?
I
Where's
think
Skunk
that's
Hollow?
the Echo Star
Oh.
property. Is that the Enser property?
No. It's
What's Skunk Hollow? What is
It's
it?
just north of the Fondue Restaurant.
Where the
Melting pot.
You don't know where
parking
Skunk Hollow?
structure.
No, it's the
Big
Oh,
flat
that
area where
little
cars-
flat area where the cars are now?
undulating.
Oh.
So.
It's the old riverbank.
So, and his idea is you park there and then you walk downtown to get to light rail, which in my mind is a little too far, but that's our argument for many years.
Could be a good
Yeah.
shopping.
Maybe just leave it alone.
So let's just leave this one as it is. It's
As
not
is?
Yeah.
hurting anything. Again,
Okay.
we're not intending to do a rewrite, but it's not necessarily obsolete or anything.
Okay.
It's contentious, discuss it later.
Yeah.
Number 3 is one that has been referenced before. It's the old Littleton sewage treatment plant should be retained in city ownership until anticipated highway improvements are completed to assure proper disposal. This is a
We
great.
all in
I think
agreement
Kurt
on this
finally
one?
nailed one. Kurt nailed that one.
Yes.
I vote for Kurt.
What about me?
Where was this? Where was this?
Bellevue and.
Bellevue and
Santa Fe.
Yeah,
Santa
where
Fe.
Lowe's is.
Lowe's? Yeah.
Lowe's is on it, yeah.
Oh,
Now you know where that is, plus you know where Skunk Hollow is now.
and I know where Skunk Hollow
It's
is.
quite educational.
Is there a sign that says Skunk Hollow?
Skunk Hollow,
No,
that's
it's
a new
not.
one.
It's a great name. Policy number 4, that any development proposals be carefully scrutinized to assure adequate buffering and compatibility between residential and commercial neighborhoods.
Sure.
As is?
There's nothing wrong.
Randy was saying, okay, but this is regulated by code in terms of what's compatibility, but
Don't we
So there's a
draft-
proposal
don't
to
we
take out the
draft
word
that, though?
any. I mean, I don't
Sorry?
see what the benefit is to take out the
We
word.
draft the code to implement the plan.
Right,
So, yeah,
so
this
we
is the
drive-
policy,
we
yeah.
drive that policy,
Right.
so it should
Exactly.
stay.
Okay,
And zoning code drives the policy too.
okay.
But Randy proposed removal of the word any. Does that word
It's
removal matter?
But wait, did we decide we're not changing
So
any
it's
wording? We're
irrelevant.
just,
Yeah,
it's either
leave
keep
it.
or
Yeah,
delete,
we'll
right?
keep-
Is that
we'll
our
keep it.
It's a
plan?
nondescriptive word.
And it's really unnecessary.
Sorry, you're saying get rid of any? Or you're
No,
just
I'm
leave it?
saying.
No change.
As is, it's a word that doesn't add any additional value being in the sentence, but there's no reason removing it.
Back to the map of the central area. As you know, we redid the central area plan as the downtown neighborhood plan and changed the boundaries. You can see from this map, if you know, for the downtown plan, we really included what we refer to as the football. So we used the west boundary, Santa Fe is the west boundary, you used the railroad as the east boundary, went to the south end of ACC, and north we went to Bellevue. So this doesn't go as far north, it goes farther south and farther west. So there are some recommendations in here, and Karina was mentioning the different sub-areas, so which sub-areas are here, and they are split a little bit. Three, for example, includes a little bit west of Santa Fe, does not go as far north. Two is all included, and one is not included at all, so.
So the question that I have here, and this is also a question, I guess, for the group, given that 2 and 3 are now part of the downtown plan, which was approved very recently, 2-3 years ago, something like that. So, but what is missing is the one sub-neighborhood area 1 is not included in any plan right now. This
At
is
this
what
point.
would become the corridor, Santa Fe corridor
Right.
plan. Okay. And so as we go through this, I would suggest that we don't even go through sub-neighborhood 2 and 3, and because really that's the downtown plan. And whatever is in here should be replaced by the downtown plan. And if anything is referencing sub-neighborhood 1, then we can look at that, or those that are kind of overarching policies and goals, just so we don't get caught up in 2 and 3 because it's not relevant to the downtown plan. We should be reviewing the downtown plan, which I personally did not do, at least for this session, because that just got updated. I don't know that it needs to be revisited. Okay. Are you guys okay with that approach and not address 2 and 3? Because in theory, 2 and 3 is outdated at this point.
So, excuse me, go ahead.
Just be clear where that, area 1, what street is this?
That'd be Santa Fe?
That's Santa
Bowles.
Fe, okay.
So,
Oh, okay, Santa Fe and then, okay, got it.
Randy asked, at the beginning, does this neighborhood plan get replaced with the downtown plan? They should work together, and I think we've answered that. So the comment at the beginning was the following neighborhood goals have been developed as a result of the Central Area Task Force reports and neighborhood citizen meetings. And I guess there's a general question people have asked, do you want to leave the comments in typically, or is it case by case, which comments get left, or do all comments get left? My understanding is the comments were added later. I think in 2000, the comments were added typically, when edits were made at that point. And again, it was a house cleaning. They pulled things out and did some explanation. So. Neighborhood goals, these are neighborhood-wide. Number 1 is encourage and promote the central area as the major activity center of Littleton and prepare a detailed activity center plan with specific recommendations and schedules to implement innovative economic development techniques to achieve the activity center concept.
Been done, and it needs to be done again. It'll need to be done after that. That's an ongoing forever reality.
I guess the question is, does that get left someplace? Do we try and put some of these in the citywide plan? Or do we,
All right,
because, yeah.
is that in the downtown plan about economic development?
Yes, absolutely.
Again, to me, that sounds like it's specific to the downtown. plan.
Basically calling for the downtown plan, I believe, is an implementation is what it's asking for.
And the downtown plan was done,
It's done.
right?
Yeah.
So I would say that those get deleted.
disagree. I think that's an ongoing, for the purpose of this exercise, with the intent and scope of just deleting what is irrelevant, that is certainly something that will live forever, and it's very broad brush in its words. If this is indeed to be replaced by the downtown development plan, then that should be a dialogue unto itself in which we compare and contrast each one. I don't think that's in the scope of today's conversation.
I'm looking at this as we're taking all this language and we're applying it to the Santa Fe corridor, right? Because this is kind of becoming a different plan or a different neighborhood.
The neighborhood can overlap into the corridor. They often do.
But we're calling the central area now just sub-area 1. So as we're talking, I'm just picturing sub-area 1, and everything we're saying is applying to just sub-area 1, correct?
That's how I think we should look at it, because again, this central area, or at least sub-neighborhood 2 and 3, was replaced and updated by the downtown plan.
So how does goal 1 apply to sub-area 1?
Dead on.
And I agree, because I think we still have to connect our downtown area with our Santa Fe corridor area, because it's going to have Breckenridge Brewery, Aspen Grove. I mean, those things
Hudson
hopefully can
Gardens is there.
play
I mean,
off of each
activity
other.
center is relevant.
You've got, restaurants, you've got
Yeah, okay.
Flat River.
I'd say leave it.
Yep.
Okay.
And there is an effort to sort of revitalize the river too and make it more accessible.
So no change to 1?
No change.
Okay. Number 2, improve traffic circulation throughout the central area. And Randy says, okay, we want to improve circulation, not reduce it. Downtown needs traffic. Some congestion is actually good for retail.
I think it's fine the way it is. It's not saying to reduce it, it's just saying improving the circulation. Doesn't necessarily mean to reduce.
Yeah, that could be adjusted.
Okay. Number 3, plan and implement a program to provide additional off-street parking and special pedestrian access to Main Street and the light rail facility.
Yep.
Number 4, encourage the retention of the historic and small-town character of Main Street. Again, if we're dealing only with number 1, sub-area 1, does that apply?
So this one, I would say no, because this is definitely for the downtown area. So this would be a delete.
Number 5, acquire and develop additional open space land for the central area, provide exclusive pedestrian ways connecting Arapahoe Community College and Main Street.
Okay with that?
But now, again, this one, it does fall under the downtown area alone.
No.
It's saying, but it's specifying pedestrian ways connecting ACC to Main Street, not ACC across the road.
But with just the first part of it, it would be, I think,
It would be fine. It
Fine,
would be
right.
Connecting ACC to the rest of the city, as opposed to Main Street, because there is that, right by the old mill, there's that under bridge thing there.
But if we change the way this is worded, then again, the intent of this one was for a connection of ACC to downtown. So to stay true to our intent, then I would say this one gets deleted,
Can we
not
just-
changed.
Can we get rid of Arapahoe Community College and Main Street? Because I'm in favor, especially as it pertains to 1, of creating better connections across Santa Fe to some of these, to kind of this Platte River corridor, Breckenridge Brewery, Hudson Gardens, et cetera.
Let's table that and see if there's any other goals that address that, because that's about accessibility in the central area beyond vehicular accessibility. But again, we just, we're on a slippery slope if we start changing the intent right now. And I think the next step of this will be, after we do cleanup, let's look at it and see, are we missing anything that is material? And then we can have that discussion of whether or not to add. Okay?
Just a little clarification here. You're saying then goal 4 and goal 5 should be deleted because they're in the downtown plan?
Correct.
and because
They have been updated by the downtown plan.
and they refer specifically to areas 2 and 3.
Okay.
Okay.
Downtown plan is, unlike the Littleton Boulevard corridor study, it has been accepted by
Exactly.
council.
It's been
Exactly.
adopted as a neighborhood plan.
Yes.
So,
It's a neighborhood plan.
right.
Okay.
So it's our first new neighborhood plan, basically. So, okay.
Oh,
Number
1/10
6.
there. Yeah.
Number 6, encourage and accommodate the private rehabilitation of older residential and commercial structures.
Sure.
Okay? Number 7, Main Street should be developed as a pedestrian-oriented walk-in shopping area with special efforts given to the establishment of a wider range of retail goods and services to attract as great a consumer market as possible. Again, it seems like it's referring specifically to Main Street.
That should come out.
Delete.
Yeah.
Number 8, continue public and private efforts to beautify the neighborhood.
Forever and ever, amen.
Okay.
That stays.
Number 9, portions of the central area known as the Little to Main Street Historic District and individual structures have been designated locally significant historic areas and structures. Preservation of these areas and structures is essential to maintain Littleton's unique character. We do have at least one historic structure in Area 1, Sub-Area 1, which is the Hudson Gardens structure.
Then I think we have to leave this in.
Okay.
So it stays?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless, okay, let's maybe look at the language here. Portions of the central area known as the Littleton Main Street Historic District. So it's specifying that area. And individual structures have been designated locally significant. Preservation of these areas and structures is central. I guess, and individual structures would bring Hudson Gardens into the scope, would it not?
Again,
Okay.
in keeping with not making too many changes. I'd say leave it.
We keep saying delete and not delete. What is the severity of these comments? Are we going to receive a draft that says this was withdrawn and here's the downtown plan now, make sure that is what you said? Or is this sort of from here on out, this is going to turn into a motion and the same thing is going to move forward without the content that we specify?
What we will do is we'll bring back to you an edited version that shows what was deleted. So you'll know what was here, what's been taken out, and that's what we're proposing then to take to the public. Yeah, so once you finalize what you see as the draft, then we will post that online and say, start looking for public comments.
Simply with the intent of cleanup effort, not with the intent of.
Yeah, and what we put online will not show what was deleted. It will just show, is my understanding, my thought is that we'll have a clean copy that people can read through and say, here's what we're proposing.
And for our purpose of deliberation, can we keep track of what is being deleted to be sure we don't lose the intent of what that is?
Absolutely, you bet.
One little item, just FYI, as I asked you about the Little House. Richard Little House is not a designated historic structure in the city of Littleton.
Correct.
What?
Fascinating. Yeah, not.
The owner did not want it to be designated, so it's not. Neighborhood
So
policy.
that's not so this is not an accurate statement?
Not at this point,
Well,
no.
it was probably on the list of
Well,
merit, when the list of merit had merit.
So should we, just for sake of not creating confusion and for this being
Delete
inaccurate,
the parenthetical?
Yeah,
Good. Yeah, because it was at one point, and that was taken off, is my understanding. I think it was there initially.
But it could be again. I don't know.
yeah, but it's, but this is suggesting that it is.
It is, yeah, exactly. And I
And
think
it
it's
is
fairly
not.
controversial. It's something the owner really does not want. So if all structures, we could list other structures.
Well, was it on the list of merit? It must have been on the list of merit.
It was on the list of merit, right, and now the list of merit is gone, so.
So, yeah, okay. So it made sense. It could then say designated local significant, and I guess the list of merit is significant structures without being a designated historic structure.
Oh,
Yeah.
Fine line there.
Yeah.
So what's the conclusion? Leave it or take it out?
I think we take out the parenthetical is what my understanding was.
Mark, are you disagreeing with it?
No. No, I'm not. I just wanted to,
Okay.
everybody's
So
attention.
you're fine taking out the parenthetical?
Yes.
And you could replace it with Hudson Gardens if you want, something.
I don't think we need to replace it with anything.
Okay, good. Transportation, neighborhood policies. Policy number 1, that all alternatives be examined to, it did say reduce traffic congestion in the central area. And what Randy was proposing was that all alternatives be examined to improve traffic flow in the central area.
I don't think it's necessary to change this.
Okay? So okay as is? Okay. Number 2, that South Rio Grande Street from Bellevue to Main Street be improved to a 4-lane parkway
to carry the additional traffic loads caused by the Arapahoe County Office Complex, the Littleton City Hall, and light rail. This would be inconsistent with the discussion that went forward with the downtown plan, because this was in the central area plan, and when the planning board, city council approved the downtown plan and went through the discussion, they took that out specifically because it's no longer possible to do that nor desirable, I think.
So policy number 2 would be deleted.
Right.
You say it's not possible, there's not the right of way?
Right away, yeah.
I think it's right up against the track right away, isn't
It
it?
is. It goes under Hill Street Apartments.
I thought maybe getting rid of it, but it's a policy, but
And do we really
if
want
it
to?
can't happen.
Yeah.
Well, and Bellevue doesn't connect to Bellevue, so it's sort of.
Good, so goodbye, policy 2, is it?
Yes, that's okay.
Yeah, we did some. Yeah.
Policy number 3, that South Santa Fe Drive be improved to a 6-lane controlled access facility. In this area, it has been. So that's been completed in this area. It stops, as you know, farther south, goes to a 4-lane, but at this area, it is 6-lane.
So if in this area it's been completed, should we just delete it? It's already been done.
I think so. I mean, there are a few areas left which have uncontrolled access, one of which is Concalo, but CDOT's intent is to eliminate those over time as they can.
So do we need to keep that in to?
I don't think so. I think, that is standing policy, and they will do that no matter what. So
4-lane only
Yeah, sub-area
after
one,
Mineral
isn't it?
South.
It's 4 lanes, isn't it?
He's saying the central area only goes to the end of ACC.
Got it, yeah, done.
So in this area, it's
deleted here.
done.
Okay. That additional parking be located adjacent to Main Street Business Core with special pedestrian access to Main Street and the light rail facility.
So this, again, because it relates to downtown, should be deleted because it's updated by the downtown plan or superseded by the downtown plan.
Right. And there's direction in the downtown plan to do a parking program and actually get into more detail for this.
Right.
So, land use, sub-neighborhood 1, which is our one remaining sub-area. Policy number 1, that the detailed activity center plan makes specific recommendations on the future zoning and development of land now affected by the floodplain. Further, that all areas within the sub-neighborhood be re-examined and specific zoning recommendations be made so that future development will protect and enhance the river environment and the rest of the neighborhood.
So this stays in.
Okay, good.
Right? Until we get an update.
Okay, policy number 2, that the existing mobile home use in the B3 zone district at the southernmost end of the neighborhood be rezoned to the MH mobile home district as soon as possible. This has not happened, and there are, I think, a lot of reasons for why it has not happened. So this is a good question for you. I mean, it hasn't been accomplished, but I think there's a general sense that it's better to leave it as it is rather than putting it in mobile home. So delete, do not delete.
No, I think we should not be deleting it because, again, we're not changing the plans.
I'd love to delete this one.
Right.
But I don't
I
think we
agree.
can.
Yeah.
Right.
But I know the owner, during the Walmart hearings, was hot, he was very proud of his B3 zoning. He wouldn't agree to rezoning into mobile home park. But it has to stay for now.
Okay.
For now. It's going to be axed sooner.
So we don't need to do the others, right? Skip them?
Correct. Because they are specific to 2 and 3.
We're plugging right along.
Okay, Goddard neighborhood. As you know, Goddard neighborhood is on the west side of the city.
Yes, second.
That's my neighbor.
Yeah. Okay. That's
So
where-
sub-area number 2 is,
We did 2 and 3 is the downtown plan.
so all this is,
But to that end, Dennis, short of us being glib and saying 2 and 3 is the downtown plan, I think it would be appropriate before we make a commitment to any additional axing, that there be a specific time to look at the 2 across.
Good.
And just say, yes, it is, and then we can move on.
Okay. The only thought I'd have, I think one of the decisions you have to make is the downtown plan kind of started as you want, the neighborhood plans did originally. This is from nothing. What are the issues? What do we want to talk about? And so it's intended to be complete. They knew this was here. The planning board reviewed this. The neighbors reviewed this. Everybody went through and looked what was in the old plan. If something is not included, as you review that, I would say just, is there a real strong reason to include it now that that process has gone on and decided not to include it?
But
So
we're
I'm
not,
extremely happy to know that the downtown plan does indeed supersede everything that's written here, but I don't have the knowledge right now to tell you that.
And it may,
so the
you're
way
going
to
to find
think
some
about
things that
it,
don't exist.
so the way to think about it, if something got presented to us, we would be referencing the downtown plan, not the the sub-neighborhood 2. Sub-neighborhood 2 would not be part of our consideration of anything that is going on in downtown. We would be using the downtown plan as our guide.
Officially.
Yes. Right?
So I'd just say maybe as a fail-safe review, just to make sure.
It's a great idea, always, to review it as much as possible. I think so, too. So, okay.
And then, that being the case, then make the move, make the motion to officially
Remove it.
supersede one with the other, and to say that's gone.
Okay, good. So Goddard is on the far west portion of the neighborhood, or of the city, excuse me, goes south of Bowl, goes west of Federal, and goes to the city limits on the west side. So it has four sub-areas, excuse me. So, neighborhood goals.
I have a question before we go into this,
Okay.
because this question applies to this neighborhood as well as some of the other neighborhoods. We begin to see a lot of discussion on code enforcement as part of the comp plan. Does that belong in a comp plan that we're going to?
I would think not. I would think that that's really an issue for each city council to determine what do you want enforced or what do you not want enforced. It's kind of a moving target, and it's a given that you're supposed to be enforcing. If you have a code, you're supposed to be enforcing it.
Right.
And if you have a law, you're supposed to be enforcing it. Whatever it is, you're supposed to be enforcing it. If you're not enforcing it, why not, and should it be there?
So the question then is, should we be removing all goals and policies that refer to code enforcement if that's just what we're supposed to do as a city is enforce the code?
Well, it was important in 1981, so, and they had codes back then, so I don't think we should be messing with it right now. And it does no harm. Leave it in. It eventually be eliminated when we redo the.
The only harm I think you need to think about as you go through this stuff, it starts getting kind of muddy in terms of what the priorities are for these neighborhoods, in terms of what's really important to them, and what's critical. So as you review projects, you want the most essential elements to come out, and developers want to know what's most essential to those neighborhoods as well as do the neighbors.
No, but now you're doing you're doing edits to what the neighborhood wants.
Right, and eventually you want to do that. At some point, you want to do that. Those
Yes.
edits, I think.
Some point, not right now.
Might be worthwhile at some point to think about, the next step. What does
Yes.
what does the planning board recommend in terms of additional changes? So that's what you're thinking about doing already.
Okay.
So, okay,
Yeah,
good.
down the
I'm
road,
fine.
sure.
Good.
Tonight, I
Good.
don't think so.
Okay,
good.
I'm fine with that.
Delete, further review, recommendation, with comment and all the rest of that.
Right. So goal number 1, preserve the existing character of the neighborhood as exemplified by single-family residential uses, open space, and suburban atmosphere. Okay? Number 2, encourage new walkable, that was added, excuse me, Randy added that, new commercial uses to concentrate in established presently zoned business districts to arrest development of strip commercial, which encroach into residential areas and create traffic congestion, is the way it reads currently. And Randy recommended taking out that last portion and adding walkable to commercial. But again, with the premise that we're going with, are you okay with it as it is? Okay?
As is, meaning don't make Randy's changes.
Don't
Right.
make Randy's
Okay.
changes, right? Goal number 3, institute intergovernmental review procedures with neighboring jurisdictions so that impacts of development in those areas can be identified and planned for. Again, this does happen. You have to do that. It's a requirement. So we do, we send out review to Jefferson County and to Centennial and to Douglas County, and they send them to us, and we review them on a regular basis for consistency with our plans.
Just standard practice.
Standard practice, yeah.
Was this written with the dream of Grant Ranch?
I think so, that they were worried what was happening. Yeah, they were concerned that what happened to the Westland was really going to impact them, and it certainly has. It certainly changed the flow of traffic. It's changed, where the commercial anchors are. It's and activity. There have been some huge changes, so that's what they were really thinking about, I think.
Yeah. I think moving forward, it's probably an irrelevant comment, but for today, it's worth leaving.
Okay, leave it in as is.
Leave it for now.
Okay.
Number 4, encourage improved public transportation service, thus heavier utilization as a means of decreasing auto traffic, conserving energy, and improving air quality.
I think we leave it in.
Okay.
No need to change.
Number 5, provide a balanced mix of recreational opportunities, including organized, active sports facilities and natural passive areas. Okay.
Leave in.
Nicely.
Yes. Number 6, enhance neighborhood quality of life by supporting code enforcement programs to minimize nuisance and protect property owners from adverse impacts of poor maintenance.
Leave in.
Okay. And then we'll go down to neighborhood policies.
Yeah, so I think what you're seeing here as well is that discussion of should these types of statements be in a comp plan? And
That was there before they put in gates through that neighborhood, through Bomar South. There was traffic problems, and since then they've put in gates.
Gates, speed bumps, and traffic
Yeah.
circles specifically to block that.
Right, I don't think it's relevant personally.
because it's already been addressed?
Yeah.
Or because,
And because I think it's law.
but then we come back to should code or the enforcement of code or law or anything that shouldn't normally be in a comp plan being the comp plan? Because we see a lot of those types of things in this comp plan, that it's not staying maybe true to what, a comp plan should address and what it should not address.
Well, it's
And so the
specifically-
question becomes, what do we want to clean up tonight? And I
Right.
think we are coming back to, let's clean up what is an outdated policy. So that's why I'm asking the question, is this an outdated policy because it's been resolved or because it doesn't belong here?
Well,
I live on Morning Glory, and I'm going to tell you it's not resolved.
Okay.
It's an ongoing issue.
Then I think for
Depends
now,
on
we
the
leave it
year.
I
in.
would like more speed bumps, please.
So you'd say leave it in,
Pretty, please.
so no change.
No, I'm going to 100% against
So
changing
that would be a good example of why we would take it to a neighborhood
There we
for discussion.
By the way, as we discussed this, if you live in that particular neighborhood, your vote counts twice, so.
It'll be 6.
Great.
I'm in that neighborhood and I agree.
You're close enough.
See, this is overwhelming.
Okay, transportation policy number 1, that an intensified program of traffic code enforcement in conjunction
That's
with.
the one we just
just
said
did
that
that.
we're leaving
excuse me,
in.
I'm
We're not
sorry. Yes,
deleting
sorry,
that.
just
You're
did
not
that.
messing with
Okay,
my speed
never mind.
bumps.
Policy number 2, that a program of sidewalk and/or bike path improvements be devised to provide safe pedestrian access along major arterials.
Sounds good.
So we'll
Yes.
leave it in. Mhm. Although I agree, it's about calling them complete streets, but we're not changing or editing.
Okay. Policy number 3, that RTD be urged to revise routes and schedules in the southwest metro area to encourage more ridership. And the thought from Randy was that this is not a land use issue, this is a
Yep.
council issue.
I agree, but I think we have to leave it in.
Okay. Land use policy number 1, that new commercial uses be encouraged to locate in concentrated established commercial districts, primarily downtown. And again, Randy is saying this is debatable because we want commercial uses to be located close to where people live so they can walk to them, but they need to be neighborhood scale. And Kurt is saying delete the policy. So the policy as it stands is that new commercial uses be encouraged to locate in concentrated established commercial districts, primarily downtown.
Well, it's strange that it's in the Goddard neighborhood because the Goddard neighborhood isn't downtown. So as you read this policy, it says that we want you to put as much business as you can, but we want you to put as much business as you can over there.
Right.
So what I did for this one is I just deleted primarily downtown and just left it at commercial districts.
Then it makes sense, because there are commercial districts within.
But again, I'm just trying to be sure we don't
So we
end
have
up
to keep-
editing
we have to keep
or
it as
changing.
is and come back later.
Editing the editing, okay.
I don't know. I mean, I think the intent was commercial districts. At that point in time, maybe downtown was where the big push was, but
Be consistent, I think.
There's a parcel in the middle of a residential neighborhood right now that could develop, the Denver Water Board property. A developer could come in and says, I want to put retail stores right there. And if this policy exists as is right now, we could say, well, no, we want this to be more residential. We don't want this to be retail stores. If we strike that right now, I think we open a door.
then I think we have to leave it.
Well, I think you will find hopefully other policies and goals in here that will counteract that and balancing.
Right.
You're always going to
It
have
has to have
a balancing act.
So it says established.
Established commercial
Established
districts.
commercial districts.
Yeah.
I guess I would argue that, yeah, given what I've been hearing tonight, you'd probably want to leave that last phrase too, that they're primarily downtown.
For now, yes.
For now, but I do see that there is a need for us at the next round.
Yes.
I think
Absolutely.
we'll want to make some, decisions on what are our parameters of what we can and cannot change.
Yep.
But no change right now.
Right, for now, no change.
Number 2. There we are. Okay. Under land use.
Yeah, again, this one we have to leave too.
That development of any land zone for business within the neighborhood, if it occurs, be encouraged to develop as less intensive neighborhood-oriented uses.
Well, that word encouraged is, look at the zoning map. If you have a legal right to develop the land with 50 feet in height and 3-to-1 floor area ratio, do it. You have the right, use by right.
I mean, the alternative to that is saying if you get a request for rezoning to a higher intensity, you could use this to say no.
We have to
So
leave
no
it
change.
and
Leave it.
leave it.
Okay.
Leave it, yeah.
Semantics we'll get to.
Number 3, that any further residential development be compatible with the existing single-family residential character of the neighborhood. Is that okay?
Yep.
Number 4, that the city closely monitors development proposals in adjacent jurisdictions which will affect the neighborhood and aggressively seek input to resolve or minimize adverse impacts of such development. I think we're repeating ourselves a little here.
Sounds like Grant Ranch again.
So, okay again? Okay. Number 5, that the environmental integrity of the neighborhood, particularly as affected by floodplains, storm runoff, and soil types, be protected by strict enforcement of applicable regulations to assure that development will not cause environmental damage.
So there was something we approved on, there was a revised floodplains and how things need to be developed. I don't know if it was a policy, a code, I don't know what it was that we approved. So since that occurred, should these policies that are related to floodplain be taken out because they've been addressed by a new code or a new regulation?
There's other areas that I think it applies to.
Although it is talking about strict enforcement, so it's talking about enforcement of those regulations. They're saying, have the regulations, we want to make sure they're enforced.
I think no change.
Okay.
Okay. Parks and Recreation, policy number 1, and I'll come down here a little bit.
Where's the Columbine Trail?
Yeah.
Is that one that runs along Platte Canyon, right by the school, right by Wilder? You know, that little asphalt path right on Platte Canyon,
That's not in Littleton.
right where Wilder is?
But that's not Littleton, that's Columbine.
No, it's Littleton up till Sheridan. That's all Littleton.
But that's not part of this neighborhood.
I don't know if it's just part of this neighborhood, but that's part of Littleton. Because it's Littleton until Sheridan, and then, right? Is that city limits? Yeah, like where Wilder is.
So it goes in and out, I would think, of the Littleton probably is what.
So is this policy in the wrong place?
The policy is, let me read it, the east-west bicycle pedestrian trail linking Columbine Trail with other parks in the neighborhood be given higher priority and that it be viewed as a multi-purpose facility rather than purely as a recreational resource. It may extend, I guess, I don't know how far north it goes, do you know?
It goes all the way to Mineral.
Goes away to Mineral, okay, and then,
South.
That's going south, but I don't
South
think
to
it,
Mineral.
I don't think it applies to this plan, or this
Well,
neighborhood.
what neighborhood is that land covered in then? Is that
it's, most of it's not, it's in that southwest neighborhood that
One?
have
Okay.
a plan, yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh, it's
I mean,
that
they could-
southwest
honestly,
neighborhood.
The question would be extension of this and encouraging, like, for example, the apartments where the blind are located now. I mean,
Right.
would you potentially extend or continue this? So I'd say no change to it, but I'm not really sure it applies to the Goddard neighborhood.
Right, because this is
also-
about linking Columbine to
Right.
east-west.
And it also
Stops
says
at
other
Bowles
parks in the
presently.
neighborhood.
Well, they did just make that update in Winnetka Ponds to, it's not
They did.
open technically yet, but that, a nice little extension, the sidewalk to nowhere now goes somewhere.
Oh, okay.
So like that concept, so I'd say no change to
Yeah,
this.
I agree.
Okay. Code enforcement. Policy number 1, that the city's environmental codes covering landscape maintenance, trash, weeds, and abandoned vehicles be strictly enforced to preserve the well-maintained character of the neighborhood and protect adjacent property owners from adverse impacts of poor maintenance. So there we go with code enforcement again. Full category. Code
Well,
enforcement.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, there's, is that new? Did I miss that in the others?
Unless there's a reason to remove it, I guess.
No, I think we leave it in.
Okay. Second one, too, same thing.
Yep.
Number three, same thing.
Yep.
Okay, so we leave all three of those. Okay,
Somebody didn't like
good.
their neighbor's dog in 1981.
Some of us
That's
still
what I
don't.
read in there.
Your stuff.
I was thinking there was wildlife or something going on in that neighborhood. Oh, there could have been if it wasn't developed.
No, I've heard stories there was a wildlife going on.
That's why you moved there.
So the Heritage neighborhood, basically from Ridge Road south down to Mineral, or down to actually north of the Highline Canal, east-west, kind of through the canal, from Broadway over to Santa Fe. Neighborhood goals.
So again, all of these are still applicable, so we should not change them. I think some of them could be better phrased, but I wouldn't say any of them are outdated at this point. The only comment that I had on these goals was goal number 3. Interestingly enough, this is actually a policy in another neighborhood as opposed to a goal. So is this a goal or is it a policy? That was my question.
Great. Which neighborhood is that in? Do you have the other river?
I did not cross-reference
Okay,
that,
I'll
but I'll find it.
That's great, yeah. Yeah, I think these overlap a lot. I don't think these have a clear definition when it because they were done by each neighborhood, and I think it probably changed from neighborhood to neighborhood as to what they were defining. So.
So I'd say leave all the neighborhood goals.
Leave all the neighborhood goals. Anybody disagree with that?
Nope.
Okay. Neighborhood policies, transportation.
Let's delete policy number 1.
Okay, good.
Now we can have that next meeting.
Okay, we're going to, just in case
Five
people are
people
watching,
show
we're going to show what that is. That is that an intensified, access to Heritage High School should be improved by providing an alternate route to the school via Gallup Street, and the city should undertake feasibility studies to determine how to accomplish this. So we're recommending that is deleted. Okay. And number 2, safety around elementary schools should be improved by installation of flashing signals to be operated only during school hours when the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit is in
This is done
effect.
as well.
This has been done too, is my.
I'm thinking of Moody and Euclid, yeah. So I think,
Flashing lights, everything is in?
from my recollection, but I mean, we can verify,
That's my
but I'm
understanding
pretty
of Public
sure.
Works too, has been.
But if it doesn't exist, it says it should be improved. So again, no change. I mean, I think that's the right idea, isn't it?
But if it's,
So
I think
it's
it's done,
specifying,
Just leaving it in is probably what I would do, but
Right, yeah.
you want to get rid of it?
I want to like check it off our, done,
but it's done.
done.
Should we drive out there right now?
But if it's not done, I mean, this
Yeah.
provides,
We should just leave it in.
do we know for certain that it's done?
So can we
If it is-
just verify it, public, can we just
Okay.
verify it?
Okay, if he verifies it, then it'll be gone in the next
fine.
version.
Gone, okay.
So there has to be a light, both ends, plus signs.
I mean, I feel like isn't that the school district just demand that? Like, doesn't, maybe, I don't know. I just feel like every school.
Well, I think that's why we verify.
We'll
with
check
Public
with you,
Works.
Okay.
So that's a maybe kind of a.
It's a maybe, yeah.
So is the thought that if we verify that it has been done,
Yeah, that
that
we
we
can
go
delete
ahead
it.
We could delete it.
They'll undo
and we'll
it.
bring back to you kind of explanation of what that means, so what has been done. Policy number 3, the police patrols on those residential streets which have been repeatedly identified as problem areas should continue to be intensified for some period of time to discourage speeders. In this case, for 30 years. So,
So I think we keep that in.
Well, I'd say leave it for now. The piece of information I'd want to see would be the statistics of speeders on that street that are caught, and specifically identifying where the speed traps are.
Yeah, but I think this again is this
leave it
really,
as it is, yeah.
is this really a policy for the comp plan or is this a policy for, for policing?
agree that it doesn't belong here.
Right.
But I don't think it worth changing.
No, I don't think we should change it, no.
Okay.
I don't think we can confirm that it's done or complete,
Or ever will be complete.
or wherever we'll
And
be.
I'd want the data to support
Right.
that to see if we care.
Policy number 4, Ridge Road should be kept essentially in its present condition, present character as a residential collector street with improvements limited to safety and maintenance rather than increased traffic load. And we have gotten proposals for people to want it connected to Santa Fe, so it is an ongoing issue, so,
Leave it.
We have to leave it.
Still?
still,
Really?
recently, yeah. Policy number 5, a little white smaller, north-south streets should be kept as local residential carriers. Any connection between existing neighborhoods to existing north-south streets and new residential development to the south will be limited to serving that development and will be completely separate from the non-residential traffic system.
I honestly didn't understand that. Can someone explain what that's supposed to
Well,
mean?
new residential development to the south, was that Southbridge? What?
That was Southbridge, exactly, it sure was. And so this was before Southbridge was built. The thought was to extend Windermere through, and they're saying don't extend Windermere through, so the
So
north-south
this
should be
would
kept
say,
as local.
do not extend Windermere
Do not
through?
extend Windermere, keep it as a local residential rather than as a
Any
collector
connection
street.
between, okay, so any connection between the existing north-south streets and new residential development to the south will be limited to serving that development.
This doesn't even make sense.
And that's why I couldn't,
Yeah, I
I
don't know.
couldn't tell if it says,
Which
serve that neighborhood or don't serve that
I
neighborhood.
think they say serve that neighborhood, but only that neighborhood.
But if
Get a
you
connection.
put it through, you'll find a way to go all the way through
Well,
the neighborhood.
I think we delete it, just it doesn't make
I
sense.
suggest taking it all out.
Yeah, I think that.
I think it's developed as it is. There's no way to put a street through at this point. It would not
No
work.
possibility. There's Windermere.
Right.
Which came up during the Shady Croft Barn issue 15, 18 years ago,
Right.
whatever, and then, of course, Gallup.
Right. That's it. Neither one is practically possible.
There's still a gap there at, you notice at the end of.
There is,
of,
of Windermere.
Windermere.
Right.
Go up that
Between
hill.
those two houses. That's right.
We're going to put a house there and stop it.
So again, the question is, has this been addressed or is it no longer applicable because it's not possible? So, so just trying to stay true to what we delete and what we keep in.
It's hard to know if it's been addressed because it doesn't make any sense. It's hard to understand.
I agree.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, David.
Oh, no, I was just saying that the first sentence, I think,
North-south street should be kept as local residential
Yeah,
carriers.
that's true.
and then just delete the second sentence as Kurt suggests.
Well, yeah, and what,
This is the only one where he didn't want to delete the whole thing, so I think
and Mark, you were saying if we're talking about, we're deleting the policies that talk about continuing either Windermere or
Right.
Gallup, if we're deleting those, this is as
It doesn't pass
effectively
a-
deleted as well.
Doesn't pass a sniff test, because that's
Right.
what they're talking about.
Right.
But, yeah, leave the first sentence in, get rid of the second one, it solves everything.
Just have to leave it in then.
Well, I think what we're saying is the second sentence is outdated or not feasible, but the first sentence still applies. So then I would say we could delete the second sentence because that portion of this policy is outdated.
Okay.
Does that make
Plus
sense?
this- Plus we already have that information from the neighborhood, that this is a huge concern, and it would appease neighborhood residents to take that second sentence.
There is, yeah.
Anyone
See,
opposed
Carrie
to
going over
that?
There is water, there's coffee, if anybody would like coffee. So.
Cookies?
Strike second
You
sentence.
want cookies?
Lots of cookies.
Are we certain that there's no other cases where it could occur? That's the only question I have.
I'm
Because the reason I
against-
bring it up is because transportation and extensions of streets was a big issue at the neighborhood meeting. So if we strike something and we're not thinking of one parcel where this applied, you're going to
Well,
get tarred and feathered.
The first
Yeah.
sentence kind of keeps it where the neighborhood wanted it, where we don't want to extend any more streets. You keep them as the local collector streets. That's it.
But
Second
Karina, you
sentence
live
is
in the
more
neighborhood. Are you comfortable
inflammatory.
deleting the second sentence?
I mean, that's why I'm asking the question of, is this truly not feasible? And just like we heard that Gallup is definitely not feasible, I mean, apart from the neighborhood not wanting it, it's just not technically and structurally feasible. It would be cost prohibitive. So I think that's the same approach that we have to take to this, because so another neighborhood, just like we even saw about Gallup, another neighborhood would say, yes, we do want a through street so we can get to Heritage High School from the south and not have to go around. So that is the question in my mind is it not technically or structurally feasible to create a pass-through to a south neighborhood? Do you know the answer to that, Dennis?
Can't imagine, I can't think of any place it would be. I can certainly check with other folks and see, but the only place I can think of possibly, I can't think of any place really. Yeah.
I think the question is, are there any remaining undeveloped parcels? Because it's new residential.
I can't answer that. There's a two that's always come up, and that's Windermere and Gallup. By the way, it's technically feasible to do it. It's
Cost prohibitive.
Structurally possible to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
But
Financially.
economically plus city policy is
Right.
no.
Right.
So
Why do you say,
I mean, somebody wanting to
Sit.
cross Lee Gold's Trail again. I mean, that's. I'm just thinking, are there any parcels along Lee Gold's Trail where somebody could want to, where this policy would apply?
I say leave it for now.
if it can't answer your question, then do we?
I think we have to
both
leave it.
sentences?
I say leave it.
Leave it. Okay.
and maybe that's
Maybe
one
an
that
easy
we
one to change
can
that day.
look at,
But
just
today
kind of
not that day.
Yeah,
go a little bit deeper to verify for the next rendition.
Absolutely. Okay.
Just in the sake of doing it.
Could it possibly be a maybe, like one of those other?
Yeah, to verify. Let's.
Could, Dennis, could you verify, is there any other, answer
Yeah, I think you could look
RC's
at it.
question? Is there any other possibilities?
If you looked at a zoning map, are there any agricultural parcels or any, sites that could?
I mean, there may be parcels on the south side, but there's absolutely no way to connect through.
Yeah, there's probably always
There's some barrier.
a house or something blocking the
Something.
way.
Yeah, it's going to block it, or
I'm talking about the gulch or anything, I'm talking about a house.
just politically. It's just, the neighbors are there, and they have a nice quiet street, and they've been there for 30 years. They're not going to allow that to happen.
So politically, so from the front of politically, we should not change anything until we take it to the neighborhood and do neighborhood outreach, et cetera, which we're not doing. Well, I mean, we did it for Heritage, but we didn't continue to follow through on that. So until we get back to continuing on that, we would leave it in.
Okay, good.
Until we can, unless, again, we can say that it's economically not viable, just like we did with Gallup.
We're saying,
Leave it in, we're leaving
Leave
it
it
in,
for now.
but we're going to verify.
Yeah,
it's not going to be in a maybe category, it's just leave it in.
We're leaving it in for now, but we're going to verify if there is a feasible, if it is feasible in any other area that we can't think of right now.
Sure.
Number 6, the use of alternatives to the private automobile should be encouraged by safe and convenient mass transit facilities and bike paths.
Yep.
Okay. Number 7, that direct access onto South Broadway between Fremont and County Line Road be in accordance with the South Broadway Access Control Plan so as to provide maximum efficiency of traffic movement and accessibility of Broadway frontage property.
So what is the Broadway Access Control Plan?
I don't know.
I would say we need an answer to that question.
And I wonder how outdated it is at this point. So.
But again, at that meeting, I was sitting next to somebody who lives on Fremont, who is very
Fremont.
vocal about that the access problem is not solved. So I wouldn't change anything on this one yet.
Access to
It's
Traffic
Broadway
going up to Broadway down Fremont Hill is a problem. So again, I don't think we have the ability to make a change to that.
But I think what this is, so I think what we need to find out is, because this is saying that the direct access onto South Broadway between Fremont and County Line Road be in accordance with the South Broadway Access Control Plan. So we need to understand what that is. So as to provide maximum efficiency of traffic movement and accessibility to Broadway frontage road.
Okay, good. So for now, we'll leave it in and we'll say, let's do this.
Until we determine what this
Figure out what it
Broadway access plan is, and then, and if it achieved that,
Right.
then I think, again, you could delete it.
Right. Okay, land use number 1. Further development in the neighborhood should be consistent with existing development, primarily low-density, single-family residential uses.
Sure.
Number 2, any new development in the neighborhood should be designed and sited so as to protect views and maximize open space.
We don't have view corridors. There's no right to a view in the zoning code.
That's a good question, though, should we?
Should we? Exactly. To implement this policy, should we? Yeah.
Right, because, I mean, I think that's one thing that we heard a lot, actually, at the Heritage about the views and of this neighborhood, and it's actually not just for this neighborhood, I think for Littleton overall, so maybe that's something we should look at.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth striking from right now,
No,
but I think it is absolutely essential in the fact that we're built out right now, that the next guy's choice is to build high-rises in my way, and I'm not for that choice. So
Well,
I
it's
think it becomes
strictly-
relevant for us to speak to.
But it's a
at
zoning,
another
it's a
time.
zoning issue. You might live right next to a B2 zoning district, which allows unlimited heights and, 2-to-1 floor area ratio. He has use by right, he'll do it. And you don't have that right to that view you already had.
Well, that's where I think if we want to protect view corridors in a built-out city, the time to say something would be right around now.
I think we're allowed to have it as a policy and importance to a neighborhood. And then zone accordingly.
People who faced east don't care about their view of the mountains.
Right.
Like at this point in time, we don't have any purview to be making a change. That we will-
Just a good question, I think it's.
We hear you.
I think my comment was just editorial. It has no, what's the word, forcible law, really.
We knew that.
Burn grass for
But-
the obvious again?
But again, this is policy that would be implemented by regulations, and so if you keep this as a policy, do you want to go ahead and then have a regulation that says we'll create a view? So it's leading toward that, saying, yeah, this is important to us. So, okay.
I think we have to leave it in.
Okay. Okay.
Be up
Policy number 3, low-intensity commercial and office uses and residential uses other than single-family shall be limited to the peripheral areas of the neighborhood with direct vehicular access only to major arterial streets. Common access points, clustering of buildings, and similar techniques should be employed to preserve the open, low-intensity character of the neighborhood and avoid the appearance of strip development along the arterial streets. Okay? Number 4, development proposals for commercial and multifamily residential development should be carefully scrutinized to assure compatibility with existing adjacent residential development. Transitional area not less than 50 feet in width, landscaped and maintained by the owner of the non-residential multifamily development shall be considered a minimum acceptable separation.
Keep it.
Okay? It may be getting in, I mean, you may at some point want to think this is probably too detailed for the plan.
I would
Yeah,
agree.
it really is getting into, what's the actual implementation of this. So you want to go back to what the intent is. Okay. Policy number 5. And it's down here someplace. Is, in addition to the requirements of the zoning ordinance, in order to preserve the character of the neighborhood, any parcels proposed to be rezoned shall not exceed densities in adjacent developments.
So to me, the comment I had on this is, this to me sounds like policy 1, or policy 1 and policy 5, in essence, saying the same thing.
Policy 1 again says further development in the neighborhood should be consistent with existing development, primarily low-density, single-family residential uses.
I think we have to keep it because it's a little different.
Okay?
How is it different?
Because the other one said, what did you say?
Shall not exceed densities. Policy 5 says shall not exceed densities. The other one says
Consistent with, so.
Yeah.
Further development in the neighborhood should be
Primarily
consistent
low
with existing
density.
development,
they're different. I mean,
primarily low-density, single-family residential. And this one gets a little bit more specific.
it seems pretty detailed to be in a neighborhood
Yeah.
plan, but I don't think we can,
Maybe it's at some point something we merge together, the two, but for now, I don't think we can.
considering that this neighborhood plan was the one that was so contentious because of the meeting, I'd say, I don't think we're able to make a change to it at this point in time.
Well, it would be something I'd be much more comfortable having the people in the neighborhood saying we think this is important than,
I mean, to me, it just sounded like the same, but if it's,
I don't think it's
If-
necessary here, but I don't think it's worth changing.
okay. So we'll leave it in, okay?
Number 6, moderate amounts of single-family residential development should be accomplished in an orderly, staged pattern consistent with adequate public service capacities, analysis of impact on schools, and traffic impact and treatment.
Delete.
Okay? And number 7, environmentally sensitive areas such as floodplains.
So I just want to make sure everybody heard that. So we're deleting this one? Okay.
Oh, we are?
We are? I thought we were leaving it. Sorry. Number 6?
Leaving it too.
I think it should be deleted. They both seem to think it should be deleted.
Oh, okay.
Randy and Kurt.
Even if there's a few parcels here and there, it really is just over.
So there's no parcels that are significant enough that would affect schools and traffic impact that I can think of.
That's true. True. I don't think there are either.
So the reason we're deleting it is because it's no longer applicable to this neighborhood
Right.
because this cannot,
Done.
there's no area for this to
No
occur in.
staging possible.
The only plot I can think of is the one on the corner of Prince and Ridge but that's not, again, how many acres is that? What's that?
It's just not that big.
But even if it was developed, would
Would it affect the schools? No. Or traffic?
mean-
Not really. Unless it's a high-rise, but it's not zoned for high-rise or anything
That's
like
sort
that.
of, again, standard business. I mean, isn't it, to see how it's going to impact the schools and if, isn't that kind of how we operate as a planning board, that to look at how it affects, public services, schools.
It's a master of the obvious statement.
Okay, so we're going to delete this. Anyone against deleting it?
Let's take a risk.
Okay?
Sure.
Okay.
The only thing I could think of would be if somebody assembled five or six houses right in the center of Heritage, tore them all down and wanted to propose something.
But the
Highly
zoning,
unlikely.
But it's not zoned for that right now.
But in that case, it would have to go through a normal zoning process,
yeah,
approval and so
Right.
on. But the only,
So you're
you
master
still have
of the
policy
obvious.
number 1.
yeah,
This sounds like it was intended for
larger vacant
larger
tracts.
development.
Yeah,
So too.
I think it's no longer
It might have been a
applicable.
Southbridge issue.
Infill development.
It might have been a Southbridge.
Delete.
Yeah.
Kurt wins.
Okay. Okay, number 7, environmentally sensitive areas such as floodplains, steep slopes, et cetera, should be discouraged from developing or severely limited to development that will not adequately affect such sensitive areas.
Agree.
Number 8, that floodplain development restrictions be imposed on applicable portions of Lee Gulch in compliance with the Federal Emergency Management Agency National Flood Insurance Program requirements, and that all property owners in the floodplain be encouraged to participate in the federal flood insurance program.
So I think this is something around this is what we approved.
Yeah, I think you're right. An update, I think. Yeah.
No
So what does
change.
this say? That floodplain development restrictions be imposed on applicable portions, which they have been. The restrictions have been imposed
They have been, yep.
in compliance with FEMA.
And they are encouraged to participate.
So
That's it.
this has been done, so should it be deleted? I mean, it doesn't hurt to keep it in, but again, it's just stuff is in here that shouldn't be in here. But.
Just muddies up the waters a little bit. Yeah,
And I guess I'm saying delete the flood because it's been done.
Right.
We have,
But it's not always going to, I mean, FEMA changes its maps often, so I mean, I don't know. I mean, if this was an important statement for the neighborhood, and somebody did want to do a development adjacent to Lee Gulch, again, I'm kind of indifferent to it, but FEMA's going to influence that development no matter what.
This is a larger issue than a neighborhood issue.
it is, and that's why there's a citywide, what was it? Is it called an ordinance? What was that?
I think it was an ordinance, yeah, that you made a
It was a
recommendation on that.
citywide ordinance that was approved related to development on flood plains and the requirements and how far you should be, and it was,
If you want to get a loan these days on a property,
right, it was all related to that.
Yeah.
It just doesn't belong here because
Yeah,
it's a
I
city
think
it's so I think-
policy. Because it could apply to every neighborhood.
It
should
does,
apply, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, so get rid of it.
Okay. Parks and Recreation, policy number 1, the Highline Canal represents one of the most cherished neighborhood features, and as such, its preservation and enhancement should be supported.
Yep.
Okay? Policy number 2, that further development of subdivisions in the neighborhood be required to dedicate adequate public open space to meet the needs of the area residents. Realistically, it's built out. So you may have some small parcelization of some of the larger parcels you have. You may get 2 or 3 lots, but it would not be.
I think we have to leave it in for now.
Okay.
We should too.
Okay.
This is one of those that's more applicable even to an infill development.
Policy number 3, the development of park pockets along the Lee Gulch Greenbelt should be encouraged. Okay. And we're actually, some of those are still occurring, so it's definitely still relevant. Policy number 4, private development of any nature should be encouraged to utilize design and siting principles to maximize open space.
Yep, leave in.
Okay.
I have a question though, just a
Okay.
general question for architects and landscapers and things like that. So how do you, if you're developing a house on a property, how do you maximize the open space? Is it where, so if open space is behind you, you would try to keep your house as far away from that open space as possible? Like how would you,
Well,
how do you do that?
I would cite the house to keep open the
view.
the best piece of land available. Also, you could, instead of going sprawling out, you go up and you then increase your open space. That would be your 2.
Okay.
Or cram it next to the setback line as best you can, as tight as you can, and preserve open space rather than have, a little bit more on the north
Cutting
side
almost
where
like
you
in
don't
front,
need it.
in the middle of it or in front of it?
And for
Okay.
your purposes, I think in terms of zoning, you might be looking at site coverage, maximum site coverage for any parcel, residential parcel. What are setbacks? What should the front setback be? Is there some kind of average setback you'd be looking at? So
Okay.
I
I
think
was
this
just
really does
curious.
apply. Okay.
All right, thanks.
Okay, Kettering neighborhood is the next one. So this one is, as you know, from Milton Boulevard on the north down to Ridge Road on the south and between Gallup and Broadway. So it's on the east side. And then there's a parcel east of Broadway that we would propose at some point bringing into this neighborhood. So the area south of Littleton, we'd probably talk about being in Kettering, and the area north, we'd talk about being in a neighborhood to the north, and all the parcels to the south we'd probably keep in here too. So yeah, Prospect would be there to the north. So
So my,
All the goals are fine.
yeah, my
Okay.
overall comment on this one, just as we go through it,
Okay.
this looks very much like the Stern Park neighborhood. I think there were only a handful of policies that were, like, I think 5 maybe, that were, either in one or in the other. So this is coming back to a suggestion earlier. Are there neighborhoods that we should be combining and just creating a bigger neighborhood? Because they are very similar. And I think what we're seeing here is they are very similar, given that they have absolutely repeating goals and repeating policies, I would say, for 80 to 90%.
Although living in the neighborhood, we've got Broadway,
Right.
Stern Park doesn't have that major arterial that we are up against. So that would probably be the main difference. We both, we share Littleton Boulevard. We share kind of generally the same residential, the same parks,
Yeah.
et cetera. So, but other than Broadway, I might agree with you.
Yeah.
So Broadway would probably be the one thing that would make me
And I
want
think
to
there's a couple
keep
of
it.
policies that represent Broadway specifically. And so again, if we were to make this a broader neighborhood, you would still keep those policies that are specific to the Broadway-facing area. But again, we're not going to change it for this round, but something to consider in the next one.
It's worth considering. We are taking out some things in Kettering, I hope, a week on. You're saying we've got a policy number 4, that Gala Street be improved.
We're not that far yet.
We're not that far? Okay.
okay, so did we say all the goals are okay?
Goals, okay.
Those are
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. Okay, neighborhood policies down to transportation. We'll go through them one by one, or do you want to group them a little bit?
The only one I had was number 4 to
Okay.
delete.
Agree.
Okay, number 4 is that Gallup Street should be improved for an alternate route to Heritage High School. So
I
delete
got
that one.
the whole comments under transportation, I think that was probably added when we did the last house cleaning.
It was.
Do we really need that?
No. And it's
Well-
not, I'm not sure it's relevant
The
anymore.
paragraph just
Doesn't sound
doesn't, it's not needed.
But what about the comment, there were comments in other sections as well, like how are we defining what comments are relevant and what are not, or should we just delete them all?
I'm going to read those as those were the voice of the customer on that day, and they should stay until we redo the entire policy.
You're talking about transportation.
Yeah, I don't think this should be in here from
Not the end of the world,
a
shouldn't be in.
philosophical point of view.
Right.
But in terms of somebody put that in there, thought it was important that day. I don't think it's our place to take it out.
Well, the neighborhood also supported both the extension of Gallup Street, but then it says both of these projects have been abandoned. You leave it in, it's not the end of the world, but I don't see the need for it. But no big deal if it's left in.
It sounds like goring somebody's ox that we don't know who it is, so why bother?
Consistency, we leave it in?
Just
Leave it in.
Okay.
Brandon, you okay with that?
Hold on, I'm rereading it.
Okay.
Important to the guy who wanted it to be in there. We don't want to meet him.
So was extending Gallup Street.
Personally, I think it should be deleted.
I think given, since we're deleting Gallup and this references Gallup, it then becomes like you keep it in one place, you don't keep it in the other place. But the only reason I'm not taking a firmer decision on this is there's a lot of discussion about other streets in here too. So, short of editing this comment, I almost feel like let's just leave it in. I think it's either leave it in or we have to edit it.
I'd leave it in at this point.
At this point, we'll leave it in.
No.
And then let's plan on editing it next time. I think next time we might take out all the comments altogether.
Policy 4, everything else stays. Under the.
And transportation, yep.
Transportation,
Okay. Land use.
all good.
What does this mean? So what does policy 3 mean? The emphasis be placed in the decision-making process on the preservation. Oh, what does a sound desirable area mean? Like, how do you define that? I had the same question. But I think, again, we leave it in for now.
Okay. Parks and Recreation.
Policy 1, definitely, that's the neighborhood's adamant about keeping it a passive park. It has, that goal, that policy has been assaulted a number of times and been beaten back.
Okay.
Now, to be consistent with what we've been doing with Gallup and Windermere, should we take out policy number 2?
Is this done?
Has not been done, but in the comment section, it says it's been determined that it's not feasible, so it's.
Put it in the maybe pile. Do you get a little research just to be sure that we're giving a correct answer on that one? Number 2.
2, okay. The linear park?
Yeah, that the linear park to be developed on uncompleted portions, Stern Park with emphasis on there.
I guess my point has been done yet?
Well, that verify.
Might already be done.
That's the maybe.
Okay.
If
No,
yes, then recommend, get rid of it. If no, then leave it.
Yeah, I think they were talking about connecting all the way to Broadway, and has not happened, and I think there were reasons it did not happen with developments that have occurred and other paths that have gone in there. So, if you drive through there are these little short abbreviated sections that were abandoned, left over. So I think that was part of the original linear park system that was proposed. But leave it in for now and then check.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one, so I think there's a couple now that we have that we are leaving them in, but they are potentially going to be removed if we determine that they are just not feasible and
Right.
therefore outdated. But I think we have to do some research to determine the reasons they've been abandoned or not completed.
Okay. And is the board going to be okay if what we do is we talk to the Public Works Department basically and get kind of their information on those different alternatives, because they're all public works projects at this point. So
They're all what?
public works projects, they're all street projects.
So what is that? What do you mean? What does that mean?
That we talk to the different staff members and say, okay, why did this not happen? Is it feasible to happen? Is that sufficient for what you're looking for, or what else would you be looking for beyond that?
I think if the Director of Public Works
Yep.
says that has been researched extensively and that's not possible,
Okay.
therefore it should be deleted.
Yeah.
then
Okay,
we
good.
would
Yeah.
We'll go for that.
propose that, but for
Yeah.
now, I don't think we have enough information.
Okay.
I would also want to know what an uncompleted portion actually means. What is the interpretation of an uncompleted portion? I'm not clear on what that is. Does that mean an uncompleted portion is a house that somebody could build there that hasn't built that there? yet, and therefore somebody could imply that this should be developed into a park.
Yeah, I would anticipate what there being is different connections. You know, we connect from Cayley North, for example. That is not done. You know, that was decided that there was kind of unsafe intersection, I think is what happened on that one, because it was coming in at an angle and it was too close to another street. And so
Yeah, so those are
I
the
think it's
things
that
that
kind
are
of stuff.
important for us to understand.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what
So
happened.
this is, just so I can drive this is just right along Stern Parkway where there's like, is there a ditch? What's over there?
There is a ditch that goes through
Is
the
that a
drainage way, right?
Okay, then I know where that
And
is.
continues all the way down to Broadway and then beyond to the east of Broadway, actually. If you follow us, there's a drainage way.
Okay.
Okay, policy number 1 on code enforcement. Again, we've got code. The environmental code of the city, which requires landowners to maintain the landscaping of rental property, including renter-occupied single-family residents, be strongly enforced, preserve the well-maintained character of the neighborhood, protect owners from adverse impacts of poor maintenance. Again, I think Randy was saying this is common to all. This is all neighborhoods.
Yep. Okay.
But keep
We'll
it
leave-
as it
We'll
is.
leave in for now.
Say leave
Okay.
1 and leave 2.
Okay?
Mark gave me his proxy and told me to vote against everything.
Okay. Progress Park neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
This whole thing needs a significant effort to it. I wouldn't change a thing, but I would make it a priority for us to put time and effort into it.
And it is listed as a high priority.
Yeah.
So just leave everything as is that kind of?
As is with a specific intent that this is critical.
Some things have been accomplished, but there are always more things that could be done.
Which one's done it?
Well, they've certainly added additional parks. They've improved the park system dramatically. They've improved the sidewalk system and the drainage, storm drainage systems. So there've been a lot of efforts in there, but most of these I think we leave as is. I agree that just until we really get in there.
So hold on. So let's go. But I think there is some that we can delete.
Okay? And I guess the question is, policy number 2, under transportation, is that really the role of the comprehensive plan to decide what the designation of the streets is?
I know.
So,
So going back to policy number 1.
okay. Policy number 1 reads, upgrading South Windermere to arterial status by providing 4-lane striping and turn lanes. And that's South Windermere in this neighborhood, which would be north of Littleton Boulevard.
It is 4 lanes.
It is, it has been done.
It's 4 lanes up there?
It is.
It's not like an interstate or nothing, but
Right, but it is 4 lanes.
it's a 4-lane road.
So should this be,
Is it 2 lanes travel and parking on both
Parking on
sides?
each
so should we delete this one because it's completed?
Is it 4 lanes the whole way? From Littleton Boulevard all the way up?
I'll check and see, but yeah, I'll check on this if you want, okay? For now,
I mean,
So-
From, in front of Romano's, isn't it? 2 lanes?
Romano's.
I think it is, yeah.
Is that 4
1,
lanes?
Yeah.
2.
My only thought is right by the putt-putt, but I think that is.
Well, if it's completed, then I would say.
Yeah, so let's verify if this
So
is
I'd say
completed.
verify.
And when I said, well, any question of 4 lane, I thought it was 4 lanes of travel, not counting parking. It was like, we don't need that. A
No,
lane-
but I'm trying to think.
That's not a congested street.
No, yeah, exactly. No,
So we're going to verify to determine if it is 4 lanes, and if it is, then we can delete this policy.
Right,
Okay, sorry.
okay. Other policies in there you want to talk about?
That's fine. The comments, I think, could be gone, but not today.
Okay, policy number 3, provide traffic signal at West Powers and Bannock.
I don't know enough to answer that question.
hours?
Which one is it?
No,
Sorry.
I
it's
don't,
not that busy.
it's not that busy. They have a stop sign. I don't think they have a light, but yeah.
a 4-way, isn't it? Yeah.
Again, yeah,
Policy 3, traffic signals.
That's
and
right.
kind of wonder if the comp plan's the right place to get into traffic issues like that, but.
So I think we have to
Leave
leave
it
it
for
in
now?
for now,
I
yeah.
believe
I
it.
wouldn't change,
Yeah.
don't change it at this point.
Mitigate high-volume school bus traffic on residential streets. Okay, for now?
Yep.
And that was, they did do that to the extent they could. That was the bus barn, basically the bus barn facility that's north of the rec center, so.
that neighborhood was concerned.
Two, and policy 4 is very relevant right now if, what is it, Littleton Prep? Who's in
Norgren?
Norgren right now? That's Littleton Prep.
Yeah.
So policy 4 all of a sudden became completely relevant again.
Which, does policy 4 under
school bus traffic.
transportation?
The school bus transportation, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That there is a massive problem with school bus traffic and school traffic now at Norgren that didn't exist 2 years ago.
Why do they provide bus service for the, what's that academy, what's that school called?
Littleton Prep.
Littleton- And they provide bus service for that?
Just, it's
think
just
so.
an absolute school mess
May just be parental drop-off too.
Yeah.
right now. Yeah, and it's
Not unlike
not
the mess at
consistent with
Heritage.
where that should be. So without doubt, I think that should be left in.
Land use. Progress Park residents desire to preserve the low-density residential character of the neighborhood.
Not worth changing.
Okay, okay for now. In accordance with express goals of the residents, the neighborhood land use policy of Progress Park proposes that the existing zoning boundaries not be changed except as might reduce the potential intensity of development in the neighborhood.
All right.
Okay for now, I think. isn't
Yep.
it? Okay. Storm drainage. Leave that for now.
Yeah.
Yes.
And policy number 2. And we left the other one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then we get down to something very specific for them, which was the school district facilities, which was the bus barn particularly, and North Elementary School, which is now, of course, a preschool village.
So the bus facility that they're referring to now, is this the one that is near the Buck Rec Center, or was it
Yes.
in a different place before?
This is it, yeah.
Just north,
Yeah, so,
Okay.
behind the old school there.
so once again, the comments are no longer current or correct because it's no longer North Elementary.
Correct, but
Now
it's the village now.
It's now the village.
It's cool.
Okay, but this is, so, what are we looking at here?
You know, the editorial comment is, where do you put it?
Right.
What's left in Littleton where you can,
And to the extent possible, my understanding is they have dealt with the bus, what are the routes for the buses, but it's still an issue, so.
Right, because when I read this one, as you said, Mark, like, where would you put it? Because centrally located in the school district, the school district is all over, it goes all the way from the Goddard neighborhood to Broadway, so, one could argue it is central right now. So is there any intent for this to be phased out, or again, is it viable to phase out where it's located now and be relocated somewhere else? Is there anywhere else it can go?
I've not heard of anything. The only thing I've heard is that they've worked on, where do the bus drivers park, what are the routes do they take? So they've tried to mitigate the impacts to the extent they could, but I think the bus facility is still there. So.
I say leave it for now with an action item that direct communication with the school district on how they manage that, how it works, be done during the neighborhood planning process.
So policy number 2 is about mitigating, right, and reducing its impact, but policy number 1 is suggesting that it be phased out of its current location. And I don't see that being applicable because it has not happened to date, and is there any opportunity for it to happen in the future? Maybe, again, I don't know who could answer that, if anybody.
And it could get into some kind of, there may be alternatives in terms of privatizing the system,
Right.
sharing the bus system.
So I would say, I guess, let's just leave it in.
Yeah, I think so too. Just, yeah.
leave it in.
Yeah. Sorry,
Policy 2.
talking out loud through that.
No,
Okay, and leave number 2 as well, right?
Yep.
Okay, Parks and Recreation.
Everything looks fine.
Okay. And,
Something that's strangely not here is any talk of, it's it's a surprise every time I talk about the Kmart not being in Littleton. It would strike me that direct collaboration with Englewood is going to be necessary for any improvements to this area to be done in conjunction with them making improvements to their land as well.
And that is done. What happens at this point? We've got a good working relationship with city. Certainly wouldn't hurt to put it in here, but I don't think it's something we could do at this point, but yeah. So.
Correct. And it's going to be essential to drive the rest of that.
Then some policy, one under Parks and Recreation, a trail along Slaughterhouse Gulch. So are any of these done already, A, B, or C?
No. I think what they alternated the Slaughterhouse Gulch one was, there is a trail along Slaughterhouse Gulch that goes to Prince Street and then Prince Street across the street. And that's the connection at this point, yeah. So there is a trail that goes along Slaughterhouse Gulch, yes. I don't know how they get, I don't think they can get under the railroad though. So I think, yeah, through the road, I think they have to go back up to Little Dry Creek to get through the.
So then it's not complete.
I don't know if it's feasible. So they'd have to put something over Slaughterhouse Gulch or over the railroad.
Okay, just checking if any of those were done. It doesn't sound like it.
I don't think so.
Okay.
There is a greenbelt and trail along Big Dry Creek, but it's continually being expanded. So it doesn't hurt to have this in here in terms of another priority for how do we spend our funds. So. South Neighborhood.
So here's the contradictory policy. Sorry, I'm just jumping ahead.
No, it's fine. So the boundaries for the South Neighborhood basically from Santa Fe to the eastern city boundaries, and there's an area that was not included, three areas were not included in the plan, one south of County Line Road, two south of Broadway. It goes up to a kind of an imaginary line that runs kind of through the along Highline Canal. I would assume it's a section line, the original property division that runs through there. It includes all of South Park, residential as well as industrial and office park, as well as South Bridge, and then so the areas to the west as well, and Oak Brook to the east. So it's a large area, a lot of residential, a lot of mixed use. Neighborhood goals. To develop a regional employment center in the South Neighborhood while assuring adequate buffering of adjacent residential and recreational uses from adverse effects of commercial and industrial uses. It doesn't hurt to leave this, I would say, just because depending on what the market is, there's ongoing pressure to develop a lot of South Park as residential. So if you want the employment center, it doesn't hurt to keep saying, let's have an employment center. We'll leave that, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, number 2, degradation of the water quality of McClellan Reservoir, Island Canal, or any surface or subsurface water body within the South Neighborhood. Okay.
When was the South plan done?
I think it was done before most of the area was developed, so I think it was done in the 81. Yeah, that same vintage. So, number 3 is done, provide adequate vehicular access to and from industrial areas in the neighborhood without introducing commercial or industrial traffic onto residential streets. Randy said that's done. Do you want to keep that? Again, it's similar to what we've had in other areas in terms of, it's kind of an ongoing issue, I guess.
Yeah, I keep
it for
6
now.
goals.
All 6 are fine.
Okay, good. Okay, transportation, neighborhood policies. We have 6 of them. Anything anybody wants to talk about on those?
Policy number 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Policy number 2 reads that a street or streets be extended to provide access between residential developments in the Heritage and South neighborhoods, if warranted after technical studies have been conducted and a report presented to council for review.
So that relates back to the comment that was the policy in the Heritage neighborhood that was not clear.
Correct.
And that's what we're trying to assess. Was this study ever done and presented to council, and what was the outcome of it?
My understanding again is that I I don't know that the study was done. I understand that there was just a lot of discussion in the early 2000s and 1990s about doing that, and the decision was that they would not do it. I think it's feasible, but is it politically desirable? And I think it ended up being saying that it's not something the neighbors wanted. So it's something you could do, but as Mark said, it's just a cost. Anything's possible. If you build the bridge, it's expensive. If you buy the houses and tear them down, if you that kind of stuff. Because there would be a bridge both for Windermere as well as for Gallup. You'd need a bridge for both streets to continue that.
Okay, so you're saying a technical study was conducted,
I believe so, yeah.
okay,
I'll verify.
but the neighborhood did not, the neighborhoods, both neighborhoods, did not want to do this.
I don't think the South neighborhood was really there at the time. So I think what happened was it came into play as they were platting the neighborhood south. So Southbridge was part of this discussion, and that's why the streets in Southbridge are as they are. It's pretty limited access into Southbridge. And so there's nothing that connects directly to Windermere or to Gallup. So the decision effectively has been made by the platting. So.
Yeah, but, you were forceful in wanting to keep Policy 5 in the Heritage neighborhood that talked about north-south streets and, but then the connectors, if we take it out of the South neighborhood, we should take it out of the Heritage neighborhood.
Well,
I think it's within a neighborhood, though. So this is, I think, more referring to connecting one neighborhood to another.
And this is kind of the opposite statement, too. It says, if it's warranted, let's do it, and we don't want to say that.
Any connection between this is
Heritage
Heritage.
and South neighborhoods.
Any connection between existing north-south streets and new residential developments to the south, to me, that means South neighborhood.
But it said, read the last part of that sentence, though. It says, remain locally isolated, doesn't it?
Totally impossible. Can't do it. Yeah.
So again, I don't think we can take anything out then unless we bring it to the neighborhood and the neighborhood says, take this out. We don't want to pursue this any
Well,
further.
That's my point. I don't
Yeah.
think we can take it out of the south.
I agree.
Leave it in
I agree.
Heritage.
It's like we either leave it in both and then take it to the neighborhoods and decide that we take them out, or it's technically not financially viable to ever consider doing this.
Even if there's
The
no
costs
feasible.
don't outweigh the benefits.
Right. Even though there's no feasible solution, it still is an ongoing issue. We continue to hear from people who live south that they don't feel connected to downtown just because the street system is so difficult. They probably feel more connected south than they do to the north because the connections are so limited.
Right. So I think we have to leave it in.
Yeah.
We have to leave it in.
Okay.
Yeah, and also, we haven't heard from the south neighborhood yet.
Right.
They might be adamant they want it.
Right.
Right, Mister?
We're still on transportation policies 3 through 6. Anything else you want to talk about?
So policy 4, 5, and 6.
Policy 4, I would say, is being done. I mean, it's certainly being seen as a supportive street for C470.
What does as a facility mean?
Street. Yeah. Street. In this case.
I think you got to leave it in, though. I mean,
Yeah.
with Erickson being developed, I mean, there may be further changes that are necessary with county lines. So
Minerals seems done.
Oh, yeah, policy 5 is done.
I'm okay with deleting that one.
Okay.
Policy 6, I thought was, oh, no, I had a question on this one.
Oh. You have a light rail station
That the
there?
region trend would be encouraged to
Not
acquire.
in the
Is there
neighborhood.
more land they can acquire? Isn't there a little strip on Mineral that is,
Well, it's attached to the, right
What's it
next to
called?
the neighborhood.
I mean, I guess it depends. If we're talking bus mass transit, yes, and there's possibility. I don't think there's anything in terms of light rail, probably.
and we're doing a whole study around that station, so coming out of that study may say we need to expand.
So leave policy 6 in.
I think the policy stays in,
It doesn't do any harm, so.
yeah.
Why would they acquire land, though, to expand the service?
Maybe they want to put parking on the east side of the mineral station.
No land available to purchase,
What's all that open space? Is that open
It could
space?
happen by way of a land swap or something, I mean, who knows?
I mean, there,
but, I'm sorry?
Could happen by way of a land swap of some sort.
Oh,
And there's a lot of, tremendous amount of use on the east side for the RTD facility. So I mean, I don't know, is there any land there that's
No.
currently open space?
No.
yeah,
I-
not official open space, but south of Mineral, there's some land that,
Yeah.
is large ownership.
Where the old airport used, the guy that had the strip.
Well, I'm thinking about the horse corral.
Oh, the horse property over there? So I think that one, policy 6 stays in, the only one that comes out is policy 5, I think,
Okay.
right?
Land use,
The only one I have.
there are 6 policies, anything?
Six just seems like a master of the obvious statement. The general development plans for each development be submitted prior to detailed planning, which shall include sufficient data to determine the adequacy of cities. All of that is done now. That is the process.
But we throw, and I couldn't agree with you more, but there's so much in here that's just process that we do, but we threw it into the comp plan. So I come back to, I think then the next phase of this is to look at the comp plan and say what belongs in a comp plan and what doesn't. And I think things like this do not belong in a comp plan, not because, you know, they're done or et cetera, and that's what we're using now to gauge what we're deleting, but it's just statements like this don't belong in a comp plan. It's a process.
It's really process, I would agree. This goes above and beyond some of the others.
I mean, is there a reason why this one we would delete and the others we wouldn't?
I guess it's
Overly broad.
it's really, yeah, it's saying you will follow zoning and you will, I don't know, it's just,
It's not specific to the neighborhood.
no, it's not at all, you're right.
But neither was enforcing police, whatever stuff.
Well, and I don't think it's
Code
all,
enforcement.
That was in.
That's a
that was
general,
concern of the well, except that was a concern of the Heritage neighborhood, just because.
but we saw it in several different neighborhoods. Code enforcement, code enforcement, code enforcement.
But I think those particular comments were specific to areas that neighbors were concerned about. This isn't no neighbor would put this in there. No neighbor would be concerned about, I mean, I guess they might be concerned about it, but somebody who living in the neighborhood isn't gonna wanna put this comment in here because they're concerned about the process that somebody already do.
This is about as high level as it possibly can get, and the others had a little more specific reference to them.
I thought that's what I said.
Yeah,
I was, yes, Andy, I agree with you.
but think about, I forget the name of the project that was just proposed off County Line.
Oak
just-
Brook.
There you go, Oak Brook. And we talked about specifically, would that be taxing on police and ambulance and, so affecting city services? I mean, again, I think maybe it's not necessary, but at this stage of what we're proposing to do here, I don't think I would take it out. I'd
This
say
would
leave
be
it.
in the preamble to a comp plan.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing that.
I know, we're not doing
We've done that.
Mark does that regularly.
We're not doing that again.
it. Look, I'm with RC, leave it in. Whoa, wait a minute, are we gonna have a vote? Okay.
Well, I think it's one of those things, it's no harm if you leave it in and no harm if you leave it out, and
Moving right along.
Parks, open space, and public services.
I have no comments.
We have 8 different policies. Any of those anybody wants to talk about?
Yeah, I think Randy has a good comment here on number 8. There are a number of policies that relate to the same thing, but again, that'll happen, and that has to happen at the next step.
So no changes?
So everything, leave everything?
Okay, Stern Park.
Stern Park.
Stern Park. Neighborhood goals, any comments on the 5 goals that we had?
Delete number 1.
We'd like you to cut down all the trees, please.
What?
Is that Kurt?
Yeah. It didn't have delete in here, so I had to add.
All the goals are fine.
Yeah. Policy 2 needs to be deleted.
Lump Gallup with the other 2 references and attack all 3 of them together.
What?
No. This one we actually get rid of.
Oh, really? This one
Yeah.
here? Oh, this is the ditch that we didn't want to get rid of, but we should get rid of?
No, this is
This is
Gallup
Gallup.
Street. Policy number
But
2
we
under
just talked about
transportation.
this, like two
But
months ago.
in two other instances, specifically, we took out references to Gallup Street being extended.
Sold. So it's out.
It's out.
Oh,
Sold for $1.
Okay. And number 3 is a repeat. We've seen this before.
yeah. That linear park, same comment as
Yep.
before.
Okay.
This should be a vandalism concert.
Okay. Code enforcement?
We should do that.
Yeah.
Enforce the code.
I have everything else that we leave in,
Okay, good.
unless somebody wants to talk about anything. Okay. So before, I know we only have 3 minutes, but I just want to make sure we're clear on next steps. So Dennis, there were a couple of items, so there were the ones that we deleted, so those you can strike out. Then there were a couple that were, I think there were maybe 3 that were for research. And I wrote it down too, so if we want to cross-reference each other's notes, we can do that too.
Okay, great.
And then so the next time we meet, we'll review the document with the items,
Not really, I don't think so.
or not next time we meet,
Well,
we'll have to
right,
determine
right.
when.
Next time we have a study session, yeah.
Okay.
The January 12th meeting looks like it's full at this point,
Okay,
probably.
okay.
You're going to meet the consultants who will be working on revising the zoning code, so that'd be a good discussion, I think, at that point. There's a zoning ordinance that'll come before you, talking about tattoo parlors, and we've got the 2 urban renewal plans coming back.
What?
2 urban renewal plans that came before the board before, so are coming back this time from city council. So, and then it looks like the second meeting in January, at this point, it looks like we could go ahead and have a draft of what came out tonight, so.
Okay, so to talk about that draft then.
Okay.
So what I would expect to see in that draft is the deleted comments removed or identified, research on the 3 or 4 items that we said let's verify or determine
Good.
some of the history behind that. I would also like could you redraw the maps given the discussion around the Centennial neighborhood, the Central neighborhood, and the downtown plan? And so the combining of Stern and Kittering neighborhoods, we won't address that for the next one. We can talk about it then.
Yeah. But we'll have the extensions of the areas east of Broadway as well. We'll include those. It will include the areas that weren't included in the 81 plan, east of Broadway. We'll show those.
East of Broadway.
Yeah, we have areas where Littleton High School is and
Oh,
auto
right.
dealerships on the
Yep,
east side.
so the missing neighborhoods are Trailmark, Southwest, and then
And that's it, really, yeah.
and then some, the extension of areas along Broadway. So you'll redraw those maps?
Right.
Okay. Anything else that you guys want to see at that session?
Well, one policy for this next meeting where we discuss this. We've got 3 missing members. Are we going to allow them to come in and want to reopen the whole thing and go through the whole thing again?
No.
Okay, good, I agree. They're not here.
They provided their comments,
They
and
provided their
we've
comments.
made a
Okay.
decision on them.
I don't want to do what we did, continuing
Nope.
the comp plan for the entire
Nope.
community. We just went
And
over
I
over.
think, given what the changes we made, they were just striking out what's outdated, so I don't see a need to reopen any of that.
So we won't revisit it. Great, great.
Okay. All right, so I'm sorry, Dennis, when is the next meeting?
January 12th.
January 12th.
I'm not going to be there either.
Be Monday, okay.
I'm traveling.
How about everybody else? Anybody else going to be gone?
I should be there.
I'm here.
Be here. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Good meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Meeting adjourned.